Managing Multicultural Teams by Maggie McNabb. Direct versus indirect communication. Communication in Western cultures is typically direct and explicit. The meaning is on the surface, and a listener doesn't have to know much about the context or the speaker to interpret this. This is not true in many other cultures, where meaning is embedded in the way the message is presented. Cross-cultural negotiations. In cross-cultural negotiations, the non-Westerner can understand the direct communication of the Westerner, but the Westerner has difficulty understanding the indirect communication of the non-Westerner. There are 4 problem areas when dealing with cross-cultural negotiations. 1 is trouble with accent and fluency. The second is the perception of status and competence. Then there is the different attitudes towards power and hierarchy. And lastly, the conflicting norms for decision-making. The first problem when dealing with cross-cultural negotiations is trouble with accents and fluency. Although the language of international business is English, misunderstanding or deep frustration may occur because of non-native speakers' accents, their lack of fluency, or problems with translation or usage. The second problem of cross-cultural negotiation is the perception of status and competence. Their difficulty communicating knowledge makes it hard for the team to recognize and utilize their experience. If teammates become frustrated or impatient with a lack of fluency, interpersonal conflicts can arise. Non-native speakers may become less motivated to contribute or anxious about their performance evaluations and future career prospects. The third problem when dealing with cross-cultural negotiation is the different attitude towards power and hierarchy. A challenge inherent in multicultural teamwork is that by design, teams have a rather flat structure. But team members from some cultures in which people are treated differently according to their status in an organization are uncomfortable on flat teams. If they defer to higher status team members, their behavior will be seen as appropriate when most of the team comes from a hierarchical culture. But they may damage their stature and credibility and even face humiliation if most of the team comes from an egalitarian culture. The last problem dealing with cross-cultural negotiation is conflicting norms for decision-making. Cultures differ enormously when it comes to decision-making, particularly how quickly decisions should be made and how much analysis is required beforehand. Not surprisingly, U.S. managers like to make decisions very quickly and with relatively little analysis, in comparison with managers from other countries. When dealing with cross-cultural negotiations, there are 4 effective strategies to limit the problem. The first one is adaptation, which means to acknowledge the cultural gaps within the workspace openly and work around them to best suit the business. The second one, structural intervention, which changes the shape of the team intending to best suit the different cultures. And 3 would be the managerial intervention, which would set the norms early or bring in a higher level manager to deal with the problem. And lastly, exit, which would mean removing a team member when all the other options have failed. Adaptation is the ideal strategy because the team works effectively to solve its own problem within minimal input from management and, most important, learns from the experience.